Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Jeff at GeekDriven.
Hi.
We are here for another episode of Movie and Show. So we're gonna review episode 4, Seeing Red of Ms. Marvel. Today we have no Alonzo. Alonzo's he's got to take care of the little guy. So
It'll never be four of us, actually. We're just psyching you all out.
Jeff won't even be here next week. We'll just plan that already.
You can just figure the math out there. I'm not envious of him. I am not dealing with today's math, and he's got to help his boy. So nope, I'm good. I'm out. But we do have two lovely guests here today. We have Candace and Haley.
Hi.
Candace, how are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. I had such a nice morning watching Ms. Marvel. Having a chill week. Reading volume 3 of Ms. Marvel. A lot of Ms. Marvel going on this week.
Yeah. Well, it's quite fitting considering today is Ms. Marvel Day. So, Haley, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I also started my morning with Ms. Marvel, so what a great way to start the day. And then, ta-da!
Yes.
I got a bunch of Ms. Marvel t-shirts off of Etsy because I was just loving this show so much. And I was like, I need to rep it. Like, I need gear now.
They have a lot of cool ones. They have a lot of ones I've seen that are like based on the Avengers Con. And I really want one of those. Especially I've seen like the one, I think they have like a Groot one too. They're so fun.
Oh no, I have a bad feeling when I go to San Diego Comic-Con, I'm gonna come back with a lot of shirts.
Yes. They have to be all Ms. Marvel though. So
there's definitely gonna be some Ms. Marvel because I don't have any. So gotta make up for it. Yet. Yes. Before we get started, let's go ahead and give a shout out to our 4 horsemen. We have Uncle Rudy, we've got Something Wong, we've got Danime, etc., and we've got Glenn 2K from across the pond. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you guys. And on top of that, let's give a shout out to our resident DJ at Beats by Monster, Eddie. I will see you in a few weeks or so. So can't wait. All right. And then let's give a shout out to our chat. Glenn has made it all the way across the pond. Thank you so much, Glenn. It's good to see you here. And then Inja is here. Of course, she's asking us to start the show on time. And she asked nicely this time too. Thank you. There's plenty of time to take people's heads off. JR's got a show after this. And then we've got Pat Barbosa. Yeah. Look, thank you showing up. And
love when the moms show up.
Yes. I hope she's enjoying the show.
Oh yeah, she started watching it. I mean, because I think last week she just watched it like to support. But she caught up on like 2 episodes. So wow. I told her you got to keep watching. I'm not gonna tell you anything else.
Very cool, very cool. All right, and we got Cool Gamer here. Thank you so much for dropping in, and I think we're all caught up. So, what did you guys think of this week's episode, Seeing Red?
So good.
I know. I was saying it's just been getting better and better. For sure.
I agree.
It really has. I feel like we were just getting so many more action scenes, and I feel like this is the first time where you actually see her like navigate her powers with confidence as well. And so I just felt like the action scenes were so fun. The music was so good. The just like all of it. I'm enjoying it so much. Like I feel like I haven't had like a bad thing to say about the show.
No, honestly, I just I'm loving the scenery, the visuals. I love the writing. The writing is awesome. I like in the last couple of episodes, I can like take a quote or multiple quotes out of each one. So like definitely great writing. So I'm so happy with the show. I'm so happy that they're getting something right where it's a teenager who has superpowers and what their life is like. Okay, sorry. My audio went out for a 1 minute. I was like, okay, so let's talk about the beginning of the episode. So they are moving really fast. There is only, I believe, 6 episodes in this whole series, which really is sad. It's I did get it confused with She-Hulk. I thought it was like 9 episodes, but that's the other way
needed
around.
to be 9 episodes.
Yeah, for real.
It definitely needs 9 episodes just because I want more.
Yeah.
But they are moving at a very high, fast pace. And we went from at the end of episode 3, she is talking to her nanny, and she's like, "Oh, you got to come to Karachi. You know, I saw the train too, Betta." And you know, like, so, and then now we're on the plane. At first, you think it's only Kamala.
Yeah.
Because at least that's what I thought, because she's sitting next to a complete stranger.
Yeah, I thought that too.
And of course, her mom is there with her. She did say you need to bring your mom, and why would she go across, you know, the ocean without a parent when she's underage? So yeah, and it, you know, they have a little talk about having a truce, and because they are going to visit family, and who hasn't had an argument with their parents going to on a road trip with, you know, to see family, and like, all right, you got to act good, you know, you got to be on your best behavior. So and then we meet her cousins, and we meet her nanny. So we meet Sana, right? I believe it's Sana. And then we see like the dynamic between grandmother and granddaughter, and grandmother and mother. And I think this the whole Ms. Marvel thing has been, at least part of it has been, family relationships, but definitely between mothers and daughters.
Yeah.
Right. And so what did you think of that first interaction with her, you know, with mother and you know, mother and grandmother?
So with the grandmother and mother, I mean, I feel like there's like always between like a mother and daughter relationship, always like that closeness, that like, and sometimes I think also criticism. Like she goes up to her, like Kamala's mom, and is like, "Oh, your skin looks really dry." And like, I like, gosh, like,
is it one of your crazy diets again?
Yeah, and I'm just like, that's such a mom thing to do. Like, I don't know, Candace. Well, your mom's in the chat right now.
I'm not gonna say. No, I'm kidding.
But like, I love my mom, and then she'll just be so brutal sometimes. But like, she'll just say it and like not even like register it as like criticism. And like, I'm like, okay. She's like, "Oh, you look really bad today. Like, have you slept?" And then she'll go into like, "You need more sleep," and then go into like caring mom mode. But like, it begins with this like criticism that you're just like, "Okay, mom, like you didn't need to tell me I looked bad." And so I feel like there's like that kind of like closeness that like with certain like a mom-daughter relationship that you'll just like never escape no matter the age that you're at. But then like the juxtaposition between like a grandmother and like a granddaughter, there's like, depending, there can be more like compassion in certain moments. Then again, my grandmother does treat my life occasionally, but like I like think that's just like an ethnic grandma thing to do. But sure. I don't know. Yeah. So I just like, I feel like that really resonated with me. I was like, oh, no matter what, they're always your mom, and and they love you, but also
yeah, they got that knife right there in the side. Candace, how about you?
Let's see, because I agreed with a lot of those things. Yeah, it was just kind of cool seeing that, because we know like from previous episodes, seeing Kamala and her mom, and seeing like, oh, yeah.
Be careful what you say. She is watching.
No, I know. But like seeing, it was like we've seen like what their relationship was like, so it was kind of interesting to then see what she's like with her own mother. But yeah, it's like really true, like seeing that like brutal honesty. But it's like, yeah, like what Haley was saying is like where they just meet it in the best way, but then like coming off like you know, like almost like an insult, but it's not. But yeah, I just like seeing the difference in the generations. Like that's always just fun in like any kind of story. And then just like what we were also saying of just like how then Kamala has like a different relationship with her grandma. that's like different. And then they're going to be going into more about, you know, the Binglet and everything like that. So that's just like a different relationship in general.
No, I completely understand. As not being a woman, I'm going it as someone who's seeing it from the outside, but seeing it very up close. That's the same exact relationship my grandmother has with my mother. It is cruel but close, and you know, like, they want to love each other, but they don't know how to show it. And it comes off as criticism or as like a cruel statement. And then like, I've seen it so many times, and then you see how my mother treats my sister, and then I'm like, well, you're not learning. And you just kind of see that passed down. But then you see like how my grandmother teaches, you know, reacts to myself or my sister, right? Like, she treats us like babies, basically. And that's, I can see that dynamics. So I definitely felt that in that moment. I was like, oh, that sucks, but they nailed it. They absolutely nailed that moment.
I think this is such an interesting, like, there's enough distance between grandparents and grandchildren, so the projective identification is as intense. I totally agree with that. And I think there's like a level of like, there's this like desire, like, to see maybe your child like want to do better and like wanting them to like succeed or be a certain kind of way, because you don't want them to, like, I don't know, whatever the case may be, so suffer or whatever what you may have gone through. So there's this like push that like happens, and again, like you're saying, it can come off as criticism, but like there's a lot of like desire to love and like be there at the same time and have a closeness. So
yeah, absolutely. And that was a great statement. Yeah, definitely. You know, the grandparent isn't as close with the grandchild, so there's, you know, the discipline part isn't there. There's no like animosity or anything personal in that sense. They're just there to spoil and love their grandchildren, right? So
yeah, that's right. I mean, yeah, I even have similar things like that. Like, well, me and my mom are very close, so it's just very different. But like, even with like my grandma, it's like, you know, I always feel like, not like I would ever say anything, but I feel like I'm going to be more honest with my mom about things than if my grandma. I'll be more like filtered, where I'm like, I'm not going to say this to my grandma. It's like, you know, like, so it's kind of interesting in that way too.
Absolutely. I don't think I've ever cussed in front of my grandparents.
Yeah, or just, I don't know. They're just like, I feel like I could have the more honesty with my mom than with my grandma, where I'm like, I don't want to be offensive or anything. So.
All right. Well, let's we'll move on. Okay, so we get to the house. It looks like they get picked up in the middle of the night. They must call it a red eye or something like that, and it takes a few hours to get to grandma's house. And they get there in the morning, and she shows her room, and obviously she doesn't know where she's going, so she kind of walks into the wrong room. And it looks like there's it's grandma's paintings and like memories and stuff like that. There's newspaper clippings, and so it's kind of, we get that conversation that she's wanted to have from the end of the last episode, where, you know, she wants to find out what this is all about. So we learn that Nani only has one picture of herself as a baby with her father, because everything was lost during the partition. You know, they made on the last train, and she doesn't even have a picture of her mother, so she has to draw one from her memory. And this is like the focus of what Kamala is looking at. And then they discuss the bangle, and she basically says, you know, are we, and she goes, oh, Jin? She's like, how are you so nonchalant about this? How are you so casual? You know, she goes, oh, it's just genetics, you know, and that's not the important thing. The important thing is the last time the bangle was used, it saved me. So she wants her to figure out what the vision is about, and she needs to go visit the train station. So she goes with her cousins, to, you know, the middle of town to go basically sightseeing, a little bit of like education, historical education. And, you know, they're talking about, you know, where some of the oldest people live. Old Town is where the first refugees lived after the partition. And so it's a cool education about, you know, that background and that history. Because I honestly don't think that, you know, Americans probably know a lot about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that's necessarily told. Um, and then we also learn, I lost where I was. So
so they're just like going through like the historical history of like the partition and like Pakistan.
Yeah. And then she tells him she wants to go to the train station because, you know, she wants to check it out. That's what she was really there for. And you know, the cousin's like, that old place, you go there and you meet us with our friends later. So of course, Kamala makes it on her own. And before we get to that part, what did y'all think of her conversation with her grandmother? And you know, just the general education that we kind of got.
Yeah. I mean, I really love that scene. First of all, just like the room that she walks into is like, oh, okay, I see where she gets like the artistic side of her from too, which I really loved. And it just looked like a really cool room to like look through and just seeing all of the art and everything. So I was like, thought that was cool. Then yeah, just like hearing her grandma's story. I mean, of course, that's just very sad, of course, of just not having anything. I mean, that's even like just from personal experience, like just having like photos and things and from memories and stuff. That's just so important to me. And especially like my family was always big on like documenting everything, and just imagining not having those things is just kind of like a sad thing. And then it kind of goes back to when, you know, before we had photography and people would just literally draw out everything that they saw. So, oh, sorry, the siren. Okay. Chicago. Yeah, and then just kind of yeah, Haley knows. Yeah, so I lost my thought when that happened. But yeah, I thought that was just a really good scene to kind of like learn more about the grandmother, and then now seeing like you know, how she's connecting with everything that's gonna happen or that she's learning about. It's like all coming like full circle now.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Candace was saying. I feel like what was really special about when she like walks in and realizes that her like right there's a connection between her and her grandmother with like the art and like that kind of like shared passion, but then what she kind of talks about is like she lost all of that history, and so then she had to recreate it. And I think like what I love that the show is doing is giving us an education on the partition, so that way we have like a somewhat understanding, a very minor understanding of what was happening, and just like the level of this like disruption that it had and pain that it caused for so many people. But I think the story that it's also speaking to is something that probably so many refugees and immigrants can relate to, that, you know, they leave their homes and then they don't have all the documents, the photos. Like maybe it's like a war zone and they just have to get what they can and leave. Or oh my god,
so funny.
I know.
And I feel like that story is so I think with so many things also happening in the world right now, like right, the immigrant and refugee story is something that is like consistent throughout history. And I really love that it's being highlighted here, because I feel like there are going to be so many people who can resonate having like watching the show and just like either being like first generation or knowing people who are still like immigrating or refugees. We've had so much happen in the last like decade. Like this is people are experiencing that now in like the Ukraine, right? Like I don't know. I feel like that is just super powerful that they're making you think and sit with like, what do you lose? Which are not only just people, but then like your memories, like the things that like give you the documentation that maybe kind of identify you. And so I really love that whole scene and kind of what it was speaking to. And and just like her cousins making fun of her about being like a confused American Desi. And like,
oh my God.
Jeff, you and I have talked about this before, this like living in different identities and like having to navigate them, figuring out who you are. And that comes back like later in the episode when she's having a conversation with her. Or maybe it happens up there when they're on the roof and they're talking, and the grandmother's like, I'm still trying to figure out who I am. And she's like speaking to also the pain of kind of now living in a new country and there's a border and all of that stuff. So I felt like how many people on this planet also just feel that in different ways. And like also how beautiful to have a scene of someone saying like, it's okay to still be figuring out who you are at this age, and like to maybe never know, and never to like really like feel like grounded in a certain kind of way just because you can't. And so I don't know, I loved all of that, all of the lead up to like the action, the craziness, and the Disney stuff. Like I thought that was like really, really beautiful, and just something I'm really enjoying that I think we're really getting because they shifted like how her powers are coming in. So I think that allows for more
personal
depth. Yeah, so I really liked it. I was telling someone about how, I'm sorry, I'm ranting now. But exactly. I feel like I really was worried about what they would change in the show. And I feel like everything that they've changed has been so meaningful, and it has brought more meaning to the character. So either way.
Yeah. And I feel like besides like her learning about herself as far as like with her abilities and everything, she's learning about herself from culturally and her family and everything like that. That reminded me of on a lighter note of when she was with her cousins, and then they were talking about the Old Town area, and she's like, oh, like they're talking about retirement,
Florida.
and then she's like, oh, like Florida. Like that's literally like, because we're from like America, we're thinking about those kind of things, and it's like, no,
like,
not
it's
like
not
that.
insignificant. I'm sorry.
So that was just kind of funny. But yeah, I echo everything Haley's saying. Like it's just it's so much more than, of course, like just the superhero stuff. It's just it goes a lot deeper, and I'm really enjoying that part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with both of you. It definitely speaks to today's world as well. Like you said, there's civil wars all across the world currently. I mean, you said it. There's Syria, there's Yemen, that architectural said. There's still Iraq. There's, even still in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Like there's still in, like all across the world, there's all these, and even the US to a lighter extent. But like there's always this division, and so it's just pointing out that these differences, are maybe unnecessary, but it's just because you believe that this person said this or this person said that. So sometimes it's tough. I also think that I really like, there was a very important quote in there, I think, that I want to say correctly, that the grandmother tells Kamala, talking about how confused she is, how hard it is to put this puzzle together, right? And she basically says something like, if you've lived like I have, it lost what I have, you learn to find beauty in the pieces. So like that's a very big life lesson I don't think we learn until we get older, because we want everything, or we think that we're entitled to certain things, or some happiness, or that we worked hard for something and then the end result isn't exactly what we thought it was. Like that's just life. And we just can't get angry at everything for, or blame everyone for everything that goes wrong. It does suck, but I think that's a good life lesson. And then I definitely relate to what you said about the ABCD, where she's a American born, confused Desi. I'm an ABC. I'm an American born Chinese. So like I've heard that a million times in my life. And it basically means I'm a banana. I'm yellow on the outside and I'm white in the inside. You know, like that's what they're, you know, that whole difference of living in two different worlds at one time, actually probably even more than two different worlds, multiple worlds. And it's very hard to grow up in that as a teenager. I mean, you're already going through puberty, you're going through high school. I mean, you're trying
so
to
much chaos.
so much chaos, and I think they nail it in all of this.
Yeah, there's something I also wanted to like backtrack and then we move forward is the she talks about the borders too, and like how like some people want to stick to this idea of like what an old English white dude said or whatever and draw the lines. And I thought about that a lot because like borders do shift and they have shifted through history, and there are like countries that no longer exist or parts of countries that no longer exist. And I think back to I had my like great grandmother was Czechoslovakian, but Czechoslovakia doesn't exist anymore. So what does that mean as an identity or as like who you are if it's erased because people redrew lines and have called it something else now? And I really like that also like hit in terms of just like considering, like you're saying, the broken pieces, like, right, this identity is shattered, it no longer exists. So like who are you, where do you exist in that, and where's the beauty that you can find in like in creating this new space for yourself? And so I really love that quote that you just read. And I thought like so many of those like scenes, the dialogue between the grandmother and Kamala were just so good, and I felt like really like provided so much depth, and I totally agree with that. It's one of my favorite Marvel shows too. But I just feel like, and then it was still super light though, because we got the conversation about the bangle. We haven't even talked about the conversation of the bangle. Like, but I loved, like Jeff was saying, she's so nonchalant. She's just like, well, yeah, like, yes, of course. Though I have theories now on like how she will have been helped. I don't know. I'm wondering, I'm curious about in terms of the bangle, like, because it doesn't, I guess what I'm confused as is like, we see throughout the show that her mom is like, doesn't believe the stories. So like, it seems like the grandmother didn't use the bangle after that experience, but she said the bangle saved her, and I'm wondering, did she use the bangle or did someone else use the bangle?
We'll get to that later.
Okay.
Because I was thinking the exact same thing, but it depends on how this all works out in the next episode.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you on the same wavelength.
Yeah,
okay. But yeah, so we get to the train station and she sees a mural of Ant-Man. How cool is that?
That was really cool.
It just shows the worldwide effect of the Avengers and Endgame, and where we are at the present. And then it also makes a reference to like the original artist of Ms. Marvel, and it also, I think it had a saying on there, and it says you can start small and still be larger than life. So like, again, another upbeat, upbringing, hopeful kind of quote. And all of a sudden a dagger comes flying past her and hits the mural. And this guy in a red scarf is said, you know, I found you. And he's been stalking her basically because he can feel the Noor. He can feel the light. And he believes she's part of the clandestine, but finds out that she is not. So there's this little, what do you call it? Tuffle? No, that's not even the right word.
Scuffle?
Tussle. Oh my God. No, that's going to be clipped. Just clip it for me. So yeah. They get in a little tussle. But what I love about this tussle, this little fight, this little skirmish, is you can tell she's actually more instinctive and she's learned more about her powers.
Yeah.
She's a little bit more sure of herself. There's nothing, collapsing, or she's, everything that she wants to do, she's doing. And she basically wins the fight. I would say in my mind, but they need to get away because he figures out that she's not a clandestine. But he is curious how she's able to use the bangle, how she got it from Aisha. And now she's curious because how does he know Aisha? So this whole thing is being unraveled now, and we're getting bigger part of the story or the background. And of course, the hidden room and passage is in a Chinese restaurant. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, it's in a Chinese restaurant. Okay. Yeah, so they find a Chinese restaurant in Pakistan, and they hit the stove moves, and they find this beautiful hidden passage and beautiful room. It's all is green and it's textural, and it's just I can't even explain. You just need to see it.
Gorgeous.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I said it was gorgeous.
Yes, absolutely. They built the set perfectly. Then they run into a new person. I think his name is Wadid. No, I'm saying it wrong.
Is it with an L? Walid? No.
Walid. Yes.
Yeah.
So they meet Walid, and he knows that she's actually a descendant of Aisha somehow. And so she's curious, and now he's got a big story to tell her. Before we move on, let's talk about meeting Red Dagger.
Woo!
I was
Finally.
so excited. It was so fun. Oh my gosh, I was so happy when we knew that we were getting Red Dagger. I loved the fight scene. I loved it for all of the reasons that you had already vocalized. She just seems so sure of herself. We're seeing the arm get bigger and her just decking people. And I also love that she's not perfect still, because it's not like she is doing all these crazy moves and all of a sudden she's learned how to flip and do all this wild stuff. You're seeing her as she would imagine how to fight, punching, stepping up, and that kind of dodging versus she's not doing backflips all of a sudden and is has some Black Widow agility. And so I love that they're able to show okay, she has more control and confidence, but she's still not at a level that's she's a teenager with powers. So it still feels really realistic. And yeah, I'm so excited about him. I love all of the scenes when they're together, and I love the bickering of teenagers where they're just kind of being super sarcastic with each other and throwing shade. I was I'm here for it.
Would you learn that from the Turtles? No, did you learn that from Donkey Kong?
Oh my god!
And then she was
cracked me up.
Well, maybe.
You're yeah, maybe.
Kinda.
Yeah, I was really excited about that too. I mean, I haven't really got too far in the comics where I've gotten to Red Dagger yet, but I knew he obviously about him and that he was coming. So I was once they said Red Dagger, I was oh my god! It was just exciting to finally see that. Since I've been hearing about it for so long, but yeah, I agree. This was the most that we've seen her fighting and finally using her powers. But what Kaylee is saying, it's very realistic and progressively she's getting better. It's not you're going from 0 to 100 where now it's like she's saying doing flips and craziness. But my neighbors are talking loud.
No worries.
Shh. Anyway, yeah, I don't know what you guys are hearing, but sorry.
We just thought it was TV. It's okay.
Yeah, we'll go with that. We'll go with that. Next to be hearing the neighbors the baby's crying. Oh my god.
Oh no.
The joy of living in an apartment. Anyway, yeah. And I was telling Jeff prior to this of just I still want to really want to be able to see some of her abilities from that I've been seeing in the comics of things I know that she can do, but we're just seeing it progressively getting better. And right now it's a lot of punches and basically platforming, which made me also laugh about the Donkey Kong thing where that kind of made actual sense of hopping from one thing to the other. But their whole scene was just really fun. And their banter is just really great too. I'm just excited to see like where this kind of relationship's gonna go.
Yeah, definitely love their snivy little teenagey angsty attitudes at each other. I definitely am excited that we finally got to see Red Dagger. I know we've seen him in a lot of the promos and stuff like that, and I like that they explain it's it's kind of fraternal in the sense of like there's a lot of it's a mantle that they have to that carry on, that other people can also be a Red Dagger. And I also I love the fact that and I know I haven't really gotten to it yet, but who cares. I love the fact that they say that they are there to protect people from the unseen. I want to say that that's a huge connection. If you want to think about it, maybe it's an organization that Blade knows about, because we're dealing with monsters and demons, right? So we're talking about the unseen. I believe in our MCU, there are sometimes obviously demons that regular people can't see unless you have an ability, like Doctor Strange showed in in his movie. You couldn't see the Chthon or whatever it was, and until he casted a spell, and now everyone can see it. So that kind of makes me feel like it's another connection into that whole underworld of demons and vampires and werewolves. So I can't wait to see if that's a connection, because it sounds like they've been around for generations. And also I want to say, like, I just love that she's finding these connections with these boys as a teenage girl. Like she's got these little connections with them, with Kamran and Bruno at home, and then now she's found Chemo, which is short for Kareem. And so yeah, I guess I'm really liking that whole connection with them, and the fact that this is not a one-off Red Dagger, that it is an organization almost. So yeah, we'll move on, and then we find out more about her history, right? They're talking about what she is, where she comes from, because she says, oh, were we jinn, are the clandestine jinn? And he's like, no, they're not necessarily jinn. It'd be and he says this little remark that throws in a Thor reference. He says, well, if Thor came down in the Himalayas, they'd call him a jinn. So like basically it's anything that is not human is what they call a jinn, right? That's just like kind of a all around word. Yes, Haley.
Does that mean, is that like a door opening for her to be an Inhuman still?
I still believe that. Yes, absolutely. I think that's the case. Yeah. So I definitely I hope that's what they do, because I don't want them to close that door.
I feel like that like gives them enough wiggle room.
Yes.
Like depending on where the next few episodes go, and if they like open up more about her like history, I feel like there's like still a possibility. So I didn't really think about it when you put it that way. I'm like, does that mean?
I'm crossing my finger, because I do have hope for the Inhumans in the future, because why throw it out? There's story.
We already got Black Bolt, kind of ish.
Kind of ish, right? I mean, they kind of exist, at least in other universes, right? Exactly. So I'm definitely cool with that, but I just love the fact that on top of that, so he shows her this map, and he turns it, I guess, a dial on this special map, and it shows like this map laid on top of another map. And he's saying that it's basically another dimension that we cannot see. These are other realms that we can't see, but they're layered over our own dimension. And and he shows his other map. It just shows like Karachi, and then it shows like the connection to the Noor. But the Bengal, and he explains why the clandestine want the Bengal and they want to use it. They want it for not to necessarily unlock the key to get to the doorway to their world. They want to bring their world to our world by unlocking it. So by unleashing the Noor, they will unleash it on our world and we will no longer exist. And that reminds me of Shang-Chi. So if you watch Shang-Chi, you got Talo, which is another dimension, right? They literally walk through a forest door and ended up in a different realm. So it's kind of, I believe it's the same thing. I think that's how they're going to connect it all. It's like one of the 7 heavens or something like that. And then it's also would be connected to like the afterlife, right? So in Moon Knight, you know, they said that there's other dimensions, these other realms. And so like, I think that's really cool that they connected it that way. And the way they showed it too, that it was laid over.
Cool.
I was like, how does this little place that looks like it's a bathhouse have all this great technology? But yeah, so we learn all that about her history. So she's a different, she's not necessarily a djinn, she's just part of like this DNA from another being from another dimension. And it would be the same thing with Shang-Chi, right? Shang-Chi's mother is from a different dimension, and so he'd be the almost like this. Yeah, I kind of like that.
I'm excited.
Definitely. And then let's see where we at. Do you guys know where we go after this?
Well, so then the clandestine drop in and stuff gets wild.
Yes, that's right. So we didn't see it, but they get taken, the clandestine, after they get captured in the last episode by the DODC. They get taken to the DODC Supermax prison, which actually will be another connection to another show in the future. It looks like it's the same max prison that the Abomination is in, that She-Hulk was walking out of. So I hope that's the same, which would make sense because that's, you know, now they're the department dealing with all these super villains. And then we get them, I guess they escape, right? Because Cameron takes out one guard and then the rest of them is get out. And as they're getting out, Mom says, no, leave him. He made his choice, and it kind of sucks. They leave Kamran there, and the clandestine get away, and they make it all the way to Pakistan and jump in. They made it awfully quick.
Yeah, I noticed. I was like, how did you get here so fast?
Obviously, they are moving this series really fast. So
yeah.
I will just assume that breakout happened at the same time, like she was arriving already, and all that other stuff. So
we'll go with that.
We'll go with that. And as they're fighting, Waleed tells them to get out, and he locks him in. He locks Clandestine and himself, and he is pretty badass fighter.
100%.
He's taking out all 4 of them, and is able to escape. And they take off, and we get our first like chase, this big old car chase kind of thing in the middle of the streets of Karachi. They get on this like moped cart, and the whole time they're, Kamala and Kimo are bickering about how fast they're going, and they're being chased by a truck. And this is where you see in the promos where Kamala uses her power to save a family, and to get away, and then they split up. Unfortunately, you usually know what happens when people split up. Someone's got to go. So Waleed splits up, tries to lead them away. And as the Red Dagger and Kamala run off, as they're taking care of, each one of their villains, or they're running away, Namja is face to face with Waleed on a scaffold, or on a porch, and as Kamala and Red Dagger are walking through the alley, he sees that they're being chased, and he realizes that if he has almost no choice here, but he has to sacrifice himself. He kills one of the clandestines, which I didn't think that was possible. At least I think he's dead. And
we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. But kills the one that was chasing them and gets stabbed by Namja from the behind. And Kamala and Red Dagger sees it. Red Dagger throws some explosive into boiling water, oil, as a distraction to get away, and they get away. But before we get to the next battle, what did you guys think of this whole sequence? And we just met Waleed, and he had a lot of information.
I know they always kill off good characters. That scene was just so fun. I think it was like definitely one of the most like action-packed scenes that we've seen so far. It's also kind of funny because, as we know, in the first episode, Kamala like fails her driver's test, so it was kind of funny seeing that again here, where she's has to drive a car that's on the opposite side of the road, and then she's like backing up into it and like causing chaos. So that was just kind of fun. But then, yeah, just the whole card scene was like fun, really fun, and just seeing like her trying to use her abilities while that's going down and everything. And then, of course, like the whole thing with Wally was just very sad because he was just, a really badass character that unfortunately would have been great to like see, move on with them. But yeah, just really fun scene. Besides like just like basic fighting.
Yeah, I agree. It was so much fun. I think like what I really loved about the pacing of the show is that like for most of the Marvel shows, I feel like WandaVision started off kind of like slow and then like got really into it. It's like I felt like Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Loki were the most like balanced in terms of like all of the episodes. But even like Moon Knight like took a little bit, kind of dipped, took a little bit. Like I felt like there was like more up and downs with it. And then like Hawkeye also felt like a little bit more slow moving for me, and like consistently. I feel like they're packing in so much, but I don't feel like it's at all rushed, and I don't feel like we're moving too quick. Like I feel like we're getting the information that we need in order to keep it moving forward. And I feel like they haven't done it as well as they have in this show. So like even the action scene, it's like, I realize it's like the first big, really epic battle, like action scene outside of like the wedding. And it really reminded me of like the bus scene almost in Shang-Chi. That was like so fun. And like there's like a lot of humor and kind of just like thinking on your feet. And so that makes it just like so cool. I really, really loved like the whole scene. I was very sad that Wally died because, like Candace, you were saying, he just had a wealth of information, and now we won't get access to that because it doesn't seem like the Red Dagger also shares that like knowledge. So now I'm very curious, are there more people, who they are? Will they be able to help? Will they be able to go back to that spot now that it's been kind of exposed? I'm very curious as to if we will be able to come back to any of that. But I really thought it was like so fun, and I felt like absolutely perfect in terms of pacing within the story as well. And I was kind of glad that they bumped up the stakes of Miss Marvel, because I think what also there's been criticisms of the show. Like people are just like, oh, it's not for me, whatever. It's not for me. That's not even a criticism, but people are kind of bashing on it because they feel like it's geared towards like maybe younger people, which it is, because she's a teenager. So like, I don't know, that just doesn't make sense to complain about. But the stakes of this show are higher than some of the other ones, right? You have the world could get completely destroyed if the clandestine get the bangle and get her power. So you have like that high stakes. And then you also have people who are dying in this. It's not like it's just this like kiddie show that there's no real stakes, and there's not like also like loss in it. So I don't know. I also felt like that in general, like kind of leveled it up as a TV show for Disney amongst all of the Marvel ones. And so I really enjoyed it.
No, definitely. Like I feel like they took the simple approach. It's give us a little bit more each episode, give us a deeper and deeper into the story, and then, you know, just have a good old good versus evil kind of thing. And but in like you said, in this series, it does feel like it's actually there are more stakes here. Definitely when it's world ending. This is almost Shang-Chi level movie, right? So I mean, it's basically the same, I guess. I also I enjoy the fact that we get that history. We and I love the fact that we're getting these fights. This we're seeing, like, again, more of the progression of her fighting and what she's standing up for, and maybe learning that lesson from the previous episode, right? Where, you know, you're not good. Good is what you do, right? So like she's understanding that she's got to protect people and save people, and I'm just loving all of this. So yeah,
it's so good.
I do want to before we get to that end fight here of this episode, I want to talk about where we get the episode goes to the mother and grandmother and more of their relationship, right? The mother is obsessed with cleaning. Right, she's been cleaning since she got there, even though she's on vacation and visiting. I know that about people as well. In my family, yeah, you know, there's newspapers everywhere. She's asking her mother, why is there newspaper everywhere? Why are there toffee boxes everywhere? And this is kind of like I don't think this would happen in my family. I don't think they would actually say what they mean. But I love this part where the grandmother says, no, well, the toffee boxes were for you. I was just hoping that you would return one day. And that's kind of sad, you know, it's kind of like heart-wrenching. And so they have a little heart to heart and they're talking. And you know, the grandmother always thought, you know, because the mother's like, well, when are you going to move to America with us? And she's like, she scoffs at it, right? She's like, I thought you went to America halfway across the world to get away from me. And the Muniba explains that she went around halfway around the world because she was shunned by her neighbors because her mother had these fantastical theories and you know, her head in the stars, and that, you know, people laughed at her. And so like and her mother's like, that's BS, you know, like, no, that's the truth. And it's like that dynamic of how they looked at each other and how they you know, when they were younger. And it also explains, like, even earlier, I think her friend was like, oh yeah, your mother was a rebel. So like you can see how like that dynamic actually was. You can almost get like a glimpse of their history together without actually seeing it, right? And that's usually what we all get as grandkids and kids of their relationships, right? We don't necessarily get to see it, but we see glimpses of how they were together when they were younger. And I really like that part about it. I think that's left there, right? I don't think did it go any further? No, okay. So what did you guys think about like that relationship and how they showed it? And
well, I thought it was really like nuanced. Like what I've loved about like that scene, and then some of the other things when you tie it back, when Kamala and her mom are talking in the bathroom, like the previous episode, I think it is, where she's like, just tell me, like, I'm here for you. I would love if that happens.
I know.
Right?
Please.
But she tells her, like, whatever mountain you're climbing, you don't have to climb it alone, and like wanting to be there. And she was like, America was my mountain. And then like coming back to this, like, I think what we're seeing is like the complexities of being your own individual self, like what you need, and like versus like what your parent thinks you need, and then like them having like their own ideas and values and beliefs, and then like it just, right, being hard to communicate that in like a way that, like, especially if you're growing up as a teenager and your parents are like projecting these things. Like, she's like, I wanted to give you these stories. And I could even imagine like her saying, I wanted to give you these stories because like she just lost everything. She lost all of the things that, right, like here she's coming from that. If you're thinking about the mentality that she's maybe coming from, like, here's like a gift to give you something that you won't experience or understand or know because that part of our lives is gone, like, and she's like, I just needed a mom. It's like this, them missing each other, and like that happens all the time between like parents and children. Like, what I needed from you is different than what you thought you needed to give me. And I don't think it's ever easy to articulate that, but I think like this scene shows healing, and that I think is really beautiful because, like Jeff, you're saying, like, to say what you mean, to say like what hurt you is hard, but I think to see it on screen is so important because when we have even representation, not in the usual ways that we think about it, but representation of healing, of like parent-child relationships and reconciliation and honesty, like, then I think that even can be internalized through like kids who are watching it or people who are watching it, like how do I maybe have that with my parent, or how do I maybe have that honesty between us? And I just thought that was really beautiful. And, you know, it's all complicated. Like, she was her own person. Like, they saw her maybe as a rebel because she wanted to go to America, and she saw her as like, that was like the thing that I needed to do for myself. As like Kamala is like, this is the thing I need to do for myself. I need to follow this through. Right. And her mom is like, please don't do anything weird. Like when she comes, right? Like how it all is like connected. It's like missing each other, not understanding, not seeing the full pictures, all of it. It's all complex. And like, there is not necessarily this like right or wrong. It's like all this gray area that we exist in. And I think that's really beautiful. So step off my soapbox now, but
what do I add to that? There's so much. No, I'm kidding. No, that's really valid points about everything. Yeah, I think it's really important to see like those parallels between first of all, the different generations and everything. And like, it's funny how, you know, Kamala feels like her mom is not understanding her not in these ways. And that's how the grandma thought about her mom and why she like left and everything. And then it's interesting seeing that, then from Kamala, that's like, you know, really she's out there doing her own thing and into what she's into and, you know, actually doing something good out there. But of course, in this case, her mom doesn't even know about that. So I think, that whole scene was just very heartfelt. It's just, I mean, every single episode has had such good scenes about family because at the core, that's what this show is really about. And I don't think we've really had that like as much in a lot of other shows and movies with Marvel. So I think that's really good where we're, you know, like Haley was saying, it's just very relatable and how other people can kind of look at that in their lives and be like, kind of relate as far as having those kind of relationships with their parents and things like that. So it was just really great to see because then, you know, we kind of learned of how, you know, her mom really didn't, you know, leave or it was interesting that it ended up being more about her mom and why she left. And that it also makes me question, like, then what does she know about like what her mom's been saying about like what that Kamala knows between her about the Banglet stuff? Because if she was saying all these things that are making her look crazy or whatever, I'm kind of curious what she heard growing up then that like would make her like think that. I don't know. So I'm wondering if she was trying to pass on the same stories maybe and she just didn't believe her. I don't know. But another really great like family scene.
Oh. No, I think it's empowering to see the healing and how the healing begins with truth, right? Saying what was unsaid before instead of just holding it in And then I think it reminds me of, you know, my relationship with my father and his father. You know, it reminds me of like because you have to understand like the mentality and where they are in that, you know, set in that mindset, right? Where you know, their past really dictates how they think of how they're going to raise their child and take care of them and what they're going to teach them. So I mean, like you said, Sana had this, she had lost everything that was important to her, is pretty much gone. And so she wanted to pass on those stories and to share them with her daughter, so like those memories are never gone at all, so they can just carry on. Whereas you know, as she's telling these stories, other people are laughing at her and think they're, you know, they're just made up, you know, mystical crap. And, you know, like she's getting shunned and she needed her mother, and, you know, while she's getting probably bullied um and she wasn't there because she was busy talking about the past. And it goes almost the same way with Kamala, right? Kamala is dealing with all these issues and boys and high school and getting these powers, and but she can't explain any of it to her mother because she's been telling her whole life, keep your head out of the clouds, you know, focus on your school and you know what's in front of you, and talking about like how this masked woman is should be shameful to her mother, you know. It's just all of these things that you hear, all these little nitpicks that you know that are bringing you down, so you can't tell that truth to them. I just love all of that. I think it's like you said, it gives hope, or at least helps people see a different way of healing, because not everyone gets to see that on you know, shows like this.
Well, I think about the past traumas too. Like, I didn't even necessarily connect the dots of like her mom getting told those stories and feeling ashamed and having to like feel like she had to even flee the country because she was like so ashamed, to then like shaming Kamala for idolizing Captain Marvel, right? And so it's like, how do we internalize like our parents like that? How do we internalize that shame and that trauma, and then how do we then project it onto other people in our lives, especially through a parent-child relationship, because she thinks she's protecting her or like helping her so that way she doesn't experience what she did. But in actuality, it's like it's closing Kamala up from being able to say something to her, to being open. So it's like this like cycle is continuing. And I'm hoping and I believe by the end of this show we'll probably see a break in that. But I didn't like fully connect those dots until like you were kind of pointing some more of that out. So I thought that's really cool.
And I think it points to the irony of every generation that you know takes care of the next generation, how they think they're going to take care of the next generation, and they seem to make the same mistakes or do the same exact thing, but maybe in a slightly different way. But she literally, right, she was, you know, the shunning kept continuing. Didn't matter. So I really love that about how deep they go into the family stuff. So yeah. And then so we get to exciting part. We're at the end. Red Dagger and Kamala, they're running away from the clandestine. They run through into this, I guess they get into a dead end, right? And they realize they're a dead end. And I love that they immediately know they have to fight. They don't hesitate. They both turn around and they get in a fighting stance, and they know whatever comes through there, we have to fight. So I really enjoyed that strength that she has, that courage now that it's no longer questionable. And they come in, the clandestine come in and they start fighting, you know, the three remaining. And as they're fighting, one of them gets killed by the Red Dagger. So now there are 2 down and 2 left. And Namja has had enough. She goes to stab Kamala, but Kamala blocks it with with the bangle. And as she stabs the bangle, this emission of power, something happens, and she kind of gets cut through. It's almost like in Loki, where you're seeing the tearing of time and space, and she goes right through it, and she ends up in partition in India, where I like someone said earlier, it was like 1947 probably, and she's right in the middle of it, the last train to Karachi. But we don't know if it's a dream or if she actually went through time. I like to think she's actually there because she interacted with things that are in that world. So I don't think it's just something that she's a vision or she's seeing it through the bangle. This doesn't feel like the other things where she saw Namja through a vision, or she saw the Karachi train through the vision. I feel like she's really there, and we get the scope of what partition really was, and that last day of getting out of India, right? So it's a sea of people with all these trains, and it seems like desperation because there are people on top of the trains. And people are talking about, this is the last ones out, we got to get on it no matter how, whatever we got to do, and that's where we're left. They cut it off. And I was like, I literally went like that. I was like, no. And I thought, I was like, that must have been the shortest freaking episode. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, it was like 40 something minutes. So I was like, it was so good that you just wanted more. What do y'all think of this ending, this last fight? Clandestine is down to 2 last people, and where Kamala ends up.
Yeah, so I think it's finally good at even the score of where they don't have as many left of them as they started with, so that's good, at least. So I thought that was really interesting of just how, like, by the bracelet, I mean, protecting her, but then, like, sending her somewhere else, which I don't know, like, it's kind of interesting to know, like, how that happened and how that was, like, triggered by that happening. But I do think that she did, like, travel there too. I was wondering, like, is it like just in her head? But I think it's also that she traveled there. So then I'm excited to see then, like, what's gonna happen with her if she meets Aisha or finds out what happened to her and everything. I think, that's like the main thing. I think she'll finally get, like, some of the answers that she's been looking for. And then, I mean, in general, I always like seeing those kinds of scenes of, like, the time travel and seeing, like, what actually happened. And this will be another thing about her learning, now that she's actually there, like, learning about what it was like and everything. But I thought I had another point about that. But I just thought I expected that was going to be the ending. I remember I was like, I paused it for a second. It was like 7 minutes left. I'm like, no, it has to be, like, cutting to the end of it. I mean, it's a good cliffhanger. Like I said last week, it's like it always has such a good cliffhanger on every single episode that makes you want to watch, like, more and more. So I think, but that will be, of course, like, good indication then see, like, where we're going to start off with and how much of the episode that will be about. But I have a lot of questions of what's going to happen next, like, while she's there. So
I can't wait to see. I feel like I also agree with both of you. I feel like she actually is there, like, she's time traveled, which I feel is really interesting because we have traveling to different dimensions, but, like, traveling through time, have we seen that in the MCU?
Just in game, but that was because they had to create it.
Exactly.
They had to create the devices. Yeah, we'd never seen anybody actually use a power to time travel.
Which I think that's fascinating. If, like, that's where they're taking it, because what I'm most curious about is that the grandmother never said that she used the bangle. And this whole time I thought, like, maybe it was Aisha, but then, like, I feel like that doesn't make a lot of sense either, just because of, like, how or where we've left off in terms of, like, Aisha being in, like, that cave situation. So I'm wondering if she's going to be on top of the train and she's going to spot her grandmother and, like, help her get on the train. And what she'll see is, because she saw stars, so she doesn't understand, like, how the bangle works. And then she climbs and gets to I feel like that's maybe where they're going to take it. Again, I have no idea, but I would, if that is what happens, like, that is so interesting, because then that also means like when she saw the vision of the train, like her grandmother was like, I knew you had to come here and you had to be here. And then on the foreshadowing, maybe on the bangle, where it was like seeking the thing that like, it was something about like seeking and it will find you. And I feel like she's seeking, and then the train, and then like then she ends up there and through time. So I feel like if I'm seeing it right, like that is what I imagine will be like the next, what we see in the next episode. I also feel like how devastating it is to show in the MCU, like that scene of just like all of them trying to clamor on the train and like giving us like insight, and her also witnessing, actually physically witnessing the horror and devastation and pain and loss of the partition that her parents and her family members have talked so much about, right? And being able to physically experience that to some extent, I think is going to really, like, how does that not like impact you, like really as like a character, as a person? And so what I love about that and adding that to her story is like it's more about generational trauma and ancestral trauma versus like a trauma having to have happened to her specifically, and like the power of that versus like, I feel like it was so many women in the MCU, right? Like the trauma has to actually happen, like something has to happen to the girl, and then she has like her powers or whatever the case may be. But this is like a long standing like generational trauma that they've experienced that like is talked about, is like conversed about in their homes and is brought up. Like she knows what it is and the pain that it's brought, and yet like to a degree she's like seeing it, but is not like having to have had like fully experienced it herself. So I don't know, I felt like that was really powerful too for going in that direction. So I loved it. There was like all the good things. You got action, you got humor, you got drama, you got like heartfelt scenes that made you kind of want to cry, but then like made you really happy. Like, I don't know, this whole show does it all, and it does it all well. And like
educational, historical.
Yeah.
Like I love this show so much.
Yeah, I think it checks so many boxes that other shows haven't. So that's why it's like so hard for me to like, of how a lot of people don't want to give it a try, and so we're just like,
I feel bad for them. I
like
really do. I think they're missing out. Exactly. Like I totally agree with you, and I have a theory where what Namja actually told Kamala is not actually what happened in the past, and that there was a break between Aisha and the rest of the clandestine, and to get this bangle away from them, she separates herself from her family and gives it to her family to get it further away from the clandestine.
There you go.
So I feel like that's part of it. But I also I also had a theory, and I think Haley had the same one, where you talk about where maybe Kamala's actually fulfilling a destiny of going back in time to save her grandmother using the bangle, the power of the bangle. Maybe she had it in her possession, but as a baby, she doesn't know how to use it, maybe not even instinctively, whereas Kamala knows how to use it, and she's there with the bangle. So yeah, I almost feel like that's like that self prophesize, fulfilling prophecy, and it's just I'm all there for it. I can't wait to see it. I definitely feel like that connection with the history, and like you said, the generational like hurt and pain and suffering, like that's why I'm here. Like my grandfather fought through World War II, and then he had to fight a civil war, and he was like, no, I'm out. And he took his family away from there while the Civil War was happening. So like that's why I'm here, and I completely understand that whole generational like pain that my grandfather used to talk about the war. He saw things that I don't think any human being should ever have to see or even imagine. But the horrors that he saw are so imaginable. I can't even believe he is a normal person or was a normal person, like didn't break him. And so like that's the thing, like that, but I'm sure he dealt with it in different ways, alcoholism, maybe, like stuff like that. So I completely understand. I love how they're talking about this. And that we're gonna see this going into the next episode, I do believe we are going to head back home because she has some resolution with Nakia, with Bruno.
Yeah, true.
Bruno is going off to Caltech. Nakia has a real personal issue with not knowing who she was. And then we still got the DODC. And so, and she still got to save the world. So I can't wait. There's 2 more episodes. I've never asked this, but do you guys want to rate the show, or do you just want to talk about like what you think is going to happen?
Well, I feel like we dived into a little bit of what's going to happen, but I'd be down to rate the show.
So out of 5, what are you giving it? 5 Kamala stars.
I'm giving
5 lightning bolts.
I'm giving it 6 lightning bolts out of 5.
Ooh, I like it.
I love it.
I know. Like, because I literally can't like find anything wrong with it, and just like what I was saying, it checks so many boxes that other shows haven't. It's totally just was up my alley, like just from the start. Yeah, I would have to give it like a 5, and it definitely would be like one of the, like, if not that, like one of the top Marvel shows for sure. Probably the top one. Yeah, I have no complaints. I really can't be like, well, look, they could have done this, they could have done that. I mean, because like we've been saying, like because what we've read with the comics and things, we had our own like ideas of what it would be like, and because they were able to change it, but make it their own, but still stick to the comics and everything. Like they did it. They're doing a really great job with it. So I'm sad that there's only 2 left, and like they're gonna be just jamming a lot of different things because there's just so many things that still are unanswered and have to still happen. So I'm excited.
After this show, I've never been as excited for the Marvels movie as I am now watching this show. Like I was excited just because I have a connection to it. One of my friends was actually in the original Captain Marvel movie.
Well,
so
okay.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I saw the scrolls like a year before they were shown.
That's so cool.
But yeah, I mean, I love that movie, and I can't wait to see the Marvels, and I can't wait to see her interacting with Captain Marvel. I really honestly hope we see her at the end of the series. I kind of don't want it to be Shang-Chi. I'd rather it be Carol. Just for the connection and the historical, connection in the comic books.
We still need her name. Has anyone noticed we still have not heard Miss Marvel?
We have not. True. And remember, she even came up with like Nora Girl? No, that's not it.
Yeah, they're still calling her Nightlight over in America.
And maybe because of what happens here in Pakistan will make her even more sure of herself, where she's able to like maybe come up with a different name or make her name when she gets back. I don't know. I hope so. But we probably won't see until the last. Steve does have a question. What is your favorite scenes thus far? And obviously, ladies first.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, at the top of my head, I know last week we talked a lot about that wedding scene. When was just like in general of the actual wedding, and then of course like the action scenes. So that was really great. The Avengers con, because that was so relatable, and just like all the Easter eggs that were in there. And of course, like that's just iconic, because I feel like what was really great about the first episode is how like so many things were very similar with the comics, and kind of reading it side by side. I liked how I was able to like notice certain things, but that were spot on, like quotes and stuff. Let me think. What other ones? You can start, Kaylee. I'm trying to think some more things.
Yeah. So something I've really enjoyed, and they're like definitely like favorite aspects, like paneling, is when you see, like, I love the creativity of like when they're texting and you see the animations, or like they use like light bulbs, or they use the clouds, or they use like, I've really enjoyed that stuff, or just like any of the animation of like in the beginning, like that stuff just felt so creative to bring into the show, but also like held a kind of spirit that the comics had. And like I feel like that's when like adaptations are just so good, when it's like I love obviously when it's like a side by side, you're like, this is like identical, especially if you really love something. But when they're altering it, they're making it better. Like I think Brother John Comics had even said like they changed her powers, but have so beautifully built a new connected history to her powers.
Exactly.
so it's being unique. And I love that. And then I think for me, a lot of the paneling and dialogue between her and her mom, or the mom and the grandmother, like those just feel like really powerful scenes. And like, they just make me really happy to like watch play out on TV. Like I love that we're just getting so much like family. Or, oh gosh, when the dad and the son were talking before the wedding, and he's like, you know, like you can choose fear, you can choose love. Like, I loved that scene. So I just feel like there's so many good ones, but for me, the favorite scenes have been like the animation, and then the family scenes are like really my favorite.
Yeah, I've been really loving influence. Yeah, which is probably why I like it so much. And just like, I'm a very visual person. But yeah, even with like this episode with the on the airplane, when they were like texting and using the window, it's just very like clever and creative. Which again is like setting it apart. Yeah, and then like also you were saying like those family scenes, just like they're very strong, and there's so, like we've been saying, there's so many great quotes and messages and things that people can relate to. So it's like in each episode has at least one or two that are really powerful and like actually make you like think and make it more relatable than some other like superheroes might not be. So yeah, that was some other things I liked too about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think my favorite scenes so far are definitely the mother-daughter talks, the father-son talk. Those are so powerful because those were like all the quotes. The scene with the head of the mosque, right? Like that right on the porch, just everything. It's a feel good. Those are feel good moments. They're universal connections that all of us can relate to. It's not, you know, it don't have anything to do with necessarily being an immigrant or what religion you're in. It's really about that connection between your family members and what they had to deal with, and then in relationship of what you're dealing with at that time. So it's just definitely love all of that. Can't beat the wedding though.
That was so fun.
Yeah. I honestly wish we got a little bit more of it, but
before it got ruined.
I know.
I get it. I get it. Will Ms. Marvel be in a film? Yes, she will be in the Marvels after this. So expect to see her next year. I think it's next year.
Is it next year? I hope so.
I think so. Yeah, they've already filmed it.
Awesome.
So, yeah. So yeah, I think we're all done. Yay. I can't wait till episode 5. Darn it, it's a week away.
I know.
And but we still haven't seen her full costume though, right?
No. And I love that too. Yes, exactly. It's the same thing with building up her power set, her abilities, the fact that she's mastering it as we go along. I love that she only got her mask. And it makes even more lovable that it's from Bruno, right? So it's just, I can't wait. I kind of interested in if that cloth that she's wearing, is it made out of that Red Dagger vest? Because that has, what the Waleed had said is, there are threads from multiple generations of Red Daggers, so you will know you were never alone. So like another, ode to family. But yeah, be sure to tune in, go ahead and follow Candice Barbosa at Candice _Barbosa. You got Haley at ChaiComic_girl. And you'll either catch them on like Justin's show or somebody else's show. So and then check us out next week as we review episode 5. But definitely check out Ms. Marvel if you haven't yet. I don't know what you're doing watching this if you haven't watched it yet.
Watch it now.
I know, right? So with that said, if you want to do it right, watch what you like, especially Ms. Marvel. Yeah.